we're talking about the new ADU laws in 2025. Let's get going. So first off, just for those of you who don't know, my name is John. I'm one of the owners of Maxable here. And Maxable's been around for about 7 years. We've been helping homeowners plan their ADUs and really help them connect with the right people to execute these projects. To build an ADU, you need to work with an architect or a designer. You need to work with the city. You need to work with reliable, ethical general contractors. And navigating the process and understanding who the right people are to work with can be really, really difficult. So Maxable's here to guide the process for anyone who needs it. We currently operate throughout most of California. So if your property is in California, we'd be happy to help you. For those of you who are joining us outside of California, we do have a Maxable Pro program. It's a little bit different than our traditional offering, but if you'd like to learn more, just put it in the chat and we'll send you a link to learn more about the program. Otherwise, we're here to help homeowners in California navigate everything they need to know and guide them through the process of building their ADU. So if you are interested, if you want to get the process started, you can book an ADU evaluation. It's completely free. This is an opportunity for us to learn about your goals, learn about what you're looking to do, and we can walk you through the steps, help you understand what's feasible on your property, and learn everything you need to know. If you look in the chat right now, you'll see a link directly to book a call with us. And without further ado, let us dive in. So before we dive into the newest laws, for those of you who may have not have been following the ADU space, over the past 7 years, there are a few groundbreaking changes since ADUs have really become a thing. So I want to just recap briefly a few of the biggest changes that have really paved the way for what ADUs are today. The first one is Senate Bill 13. One of the main benefits of that one was that previously, parking was required. If you add an ADU, you also have to have space on your lot to add additional parking. However, with the introduction of Senate Bill 13, now parking, as long as the property is within a half mile of a bus stop or a transit center or anything like that, that parking requirement is waived. Also, it waives owner occupancy. Previously, it was only for a fixed period of time, and I'll get into how that has changed. And then finally, development and impact fees were waived for any ADU under 750 square feet. Previously, when it came to any type of addition or adding additional living space on your lot, there were a lot of fees associated with it. And the point of any of these ADU legislation is really to make it easier, more affordable for anyone to add more housing stock in California, whether it's an investor or a homeowner. So waiving a lot of these fees for at least the smaller units has been a tremendous help. Another major one was that Assembly Bill 670. The main brunt of this one is really just that HOAs and CC&Rs cannot prohibit homeowners from building ADUs. Again, in the past, they were able to be restrictive, even if it was legal on the state level or even on a county level. HOAs had the ability to prohibit these ADUs because they didn't like them. Now the state has said, we don't care if you don't like it, you have to allow it. And then another major one was Assembly Bill 881, which is somewhat tied to Assembly Bill 68. A few of the main key points here are, again, previously you required the same setbacks for any primary dwelling, but now with these new ADU laws, setbacks for most of California can be 4 feet from your side and rear property. That means you can really maximize on the amount of space. And then further, there's no minimum lot size. So it doesn't matter how big your lot is, how little your lot is, doesn't matter what your FAR requirements might be. You can build at least the state-granted ADU, regardless of the size of your lot. And then finally, ADUs and JADUs, junior ADUs, were introduced to be allowed on the same property. Again, in the past, it was kind of unsure. It wasn't very clear what these standards were. So this just put it in writing. This outlined it specifically, saying any single family lot is allowed to have an ADU and a junior ADU. And then finally, Assembly Bill 2221. This really outlined what the height allowances are for any ADU. Now, this is imposed on the state level, so local jurisdictions do have some authority into how this is imposed and what the specific height requirements are based on zoning. But traditionally, 16-foot height is allowed no matter what. 18-foot height is allowed under certain circumstances, primarily if it's within a transit center or if it already has a multifamily dwelling. And then again, not on every lot, but 25 feet is the maximum height allowed, especially if it is attached to the primary dwelling. If the primary home is already a two-story home, then that essentially means that if you attach an ADU to the home, you can match that same height up to 25 feet. And one extra little tidbit about this bill is that front setbacks cannot prevent 800 square foot or smaller ADU from being built. That essentially means, like what I said previously, there were some unknowns around if the lot's too small, can I still build an ADU? This really plays with that. As long as you have space on your lot to add an ADU, regardless of what your front setbacks might be, you may still have to meet the prevailing setback, but otherwise you can build at the front of your lot if there's nowhere else you can build it. And those are a few of the major changes that we've seen in the ADU space over the past 4 or 5 years. I see a few questions in here. We'll save them for the end, but I just want you guys to know that I see them all and we'll touch on them at the end of the presentation. But more importantly, for those of you who have been following the ADU space over the past few years, you probably knew all those things. So let's dive into the latest. What has been changing most recently? So let's just dive right in. So one of the most exciting changes has been Senate Bill 1211. 1211 essentially says that you can build up to 8 detached ADUs on a multifamily lot. I know, it's crazy. There are restrictions. The number of ADUs that you're technically allowed to add is limited by the number of existing units. So let's say you have a multifamily lot and it's a duplex. In that scenario, nothing's really changed. The most ADUs you're allowed to, and the most detached ADUs that you'd be allowed to add would be 2. But if you have a 3 or a 4 unit complex, then you can add 3 or 4. And again, if you have a large multifamily complex, 8 units or more, that means you can build 8 detached ADUs on your lot. And another element here is previously, when looking at ADU projects or opportunities on a multifamily lot, one of the major considerations was if you're using up parking space to build the ADU, you would have to add replacement parking that was taken up, and sometimes even for the new ADUs as well. But Senate Bill 1211 essentially says you don't need to replace the parking. If you occupy that parking space with an ADU, that's okay. Further is Assembly Bill 2533. The major point that I touched on earlier is before, when it comes to legalizing an unpermitted ADU, essentially the state and the cities know that there's tons of these units out there. There's tons of unpermitted dwellings that are being used as rentals, that are being used for living and everything like that. And essentially all 2533 says is, look, we know you have these. We want to make it easier for you to streamline the process, to legalize it. We just want to make sure that it's safe to be habitated. So essentially, if anything was built before 2020, before all of these major ADU laws have changed, city is trying to make, or the state and therefore the cities are trying to make it easier and easier than it used to be to permit and legalize these units. It's still up to be determined exactly how this will be applied. Essentially, when it comes to how local agencies are enforcing these changes, they are supposed to provide a checklist of what needs to be done. And previously, everything had to be upgraded to current day code. Now, as long as things are upgraded for specific building and safety standards, that should be permissible. So again, this was imposed by the state. It will take some time for all the local agencies, local municipalities to take over those rules and regulations and integrate them into their procedures. But know that if this isn't there yet, it's certainly coming. Another big one for a few people is Senate Bill 1077. If any of you are in a coastal commission zone, you may know how difficult and stressful it has been to get an ADU permitted. They've been very restrictive, and essentially all this means is we're making it easier. It is a long timeline. It's not until 2026. I believe it's middle of 2026 that all of the coastal commissions need to integrate these changes to streamline the approval process. But if you are in a coastal commission, do know that things are changing for the better. One of the most groundbreaking changes here is Assembly Bill 1033. This, if you've heard of it before, it's often referred to as the condoization rule. And what it essentially means is that owners who build an ADU are legally allowed to sell that ADU separately from the main home. That's why it's called the condoization rule. It essentially says that if you want to turn your single family property into a condo by building an ADU and selling it separately, you certainly can. Some of the writing in this code is a little bit unclear. It says sell one or more ADUs. So technically, some of the things that I've mentioned previously and that I'll talk about soon indicate that you can, on a single family lot, build more than one ADU. And this may potentially mean that you can sell multiple ADUs on your lot. One caveat here is it does not apply to junior ADUs. You can only sell an ADU, not a junior. And now, as we are getting deeper into the latest updates, everything that I've gone through was brand new. The next few items have been changed over the past 12 to 15 months. And as many of you may know, the process is not always is typically not instantaneous. So it's taking some time from it to get from the state level to the local level. So as these changes are adopted, you'll start seeing your local jurisdiction integrate more and more of these updates and legalize them for you, for your property. Another major one that was changed recently that I alluded to previously is Assembly Bill 976. If you remember earlier, I said that owner occupancy was waived through 2025. That means that if you build an ADU on your lot, previously what owner occupancy means that if you have an ADU, you were required to live on site. You could either live in the ADU or in the primary home, but owner occupancy meant that you had to stay on site. So if you wanted to turn your lot into a rental opportunity, into an investment opportunity, this was stopping you from it. And it was kind of unknown. Okay, it always said until 2025, but then what? This really just clarifies all of that. This is the then what. Owner occupancy is waived indefinitely until they decide to change it, if ever. This means that if you want to build an ADU on your single family lot, rent out the primary home, rent out the ADU, and go live in Tahiti, you certainly could. Another caveat, like I mentioned with the previous one, is this does not apply to junior ADUs. A junior ADU does still have an owner occupancy requirement. Again, if you build a junior ADU, the owner is required to reside in one of the units on the lot. Just a couple more here is Assembly Bill 1332. This is the initiative that is driving pre-approved ADU plans. Many of you have probably heard about the concept, and in some areas, I know San Diego is on top of it, San Mateo, Los Angeles, LA City is certainly on top of it. These are the city essentially providing pre-designed ADU plans. And they typically have a variety of them. Again, some cities may have more or less, but their goal is to just streamline the process. Now, there's a common misconception that you could just buy these plans, hire a contractor, and build it. It's not yet that easy. We're not there yet. All this essentially means is a lot of the work has been done. You will typically, I'll say almost always, you will still need to hire an architect. They'll take those plans and make them specific for your lot. I verify all of the details about your lot to ensure that it's feasible to add this unit to your lot. And sometimes there are changes that need to be made. If it's a small modification, it might be okay. If it's a major modification, you may not fall under the AB 1332 pre-approved plans and the benefits that come with it. But they do say that if you use a pre-approved ADU plan, it is required to be approved or denied within 30 days. Again, the goal is to streamline the process, and that's really what this is doing. Let's see, Senate Bill 1123. This is a really, really exciting one. It's a little bit too early to see how things will play out, but this essentially says if you have a vacant single family lot, there's nothing on the lot and it's empty, you can legally build 10 homes, 10 ADUs on that lot. It essentially makes it faster and easier to split a single parcel into up to 10 different ones. Like I said, it's very early. This is a bit new. It doesn't even go into effect on a state level until July of this year. So we'll be tracking this closely, keeping up to date the best as we can to understand how these changes are going to impact building codes, how these changes are going to impact the overall opportunities for ADUs. And finally, this is not specifically ADU, but it's still in the same ecosystem, so I'll cover a few of these as well. And it's Senate Bill 9. If you've heard of it, it's also, look, I'm excited about a lot of these things. It's all very exciting. SB 9 is really split into two different categories. There's the 2-unit development and then the urban lot split provision. So let me show you a few examples of what that really means. So here's a few examples of the 2-unit development. If you see here, this right here was the primary home. This is all that was on the lot originally. And this allowed them to build, the Senate Bill 9 2-unit development allowed them to build another single-family home on the same lot as the existing single-family home. And also, this example shows that this does not preclude you from adding an ADU to your lot as well. So in theory, you can have your existing primary home, you can add another single-family home on your lot, not limited by the 1,200 square foot maximum the ADUs are, and you can also add another detached ADU. This is a similar example, but it just shows, a junior ADU that's attached to the primary home, and then just like in the other example, this unit here shows another SB 9 unit. Here is a few examples of the SB 9 urban lot split provision. So much like the first example, this example here on the left shows a normal single family lot. Let's imagine the one on the left, the unit on the left is the existing. This Senate Bill 9 urban lot split provision allows any homeowner to cut the lot in half or up to 60-40 split and add another single family home on the other lot. And again, like what I mentioned with a previous bill, you can split that lot and sell it independently from your own lot. So imagine cutting your lot in half, selling half of it. You keep what you have and you can do whatever you want with it. And then this example here on the right is SB 9 to the nth degree. It's taking this single family home, adding it, or essentially turning the back end of it into a flagpole lot, and then adding an SB 9 unit to that new lot with the ADU, and the primary home, you're adding a junior ADU. So all the way when it comes to urban lot split. And here's a couple more examples. Since, like I was saying earlier, you can even combine SB 9 with ADU. So this example on the left, you can combine SB 9 with ADU, and you can combine the two different elements, the two different aspects to SB9. So here you can see this could have been the primary home on the left. It was a single family home was added to it, connected to it, essentially creating it into a duplex. And then you can split the lot from there. And like I said, add the primary home on the back and an SB9 unit on the back on the new lot. And this example on the right, very similar, but instead of two separate single family developments, it's just adding two duplexes. So you can really, really maximize a property with SB9, especially when combining it with ADU. So I've talked a lot about a lot of different things. Now is a really great time to start your ADU project. As you can see, we've come a long way. For those of you who have been following the ADU space for the past 5 to 10 years, you will certainly understand how much things have changed. And since it's gotten so much easier and faster, and I can't necessarily say affordable, but the process has been significantly streamlined, and this is a really great time to do it. So, like I said earlier, if you have a specific property in mind, not all of these codes and regulations are in place yet. They may be on a state level, they may not be on your local level. So book a call with us. Our ADU experts will walk you through the process. They'll research your property. They'll share everything that we know about your local codes and anything new that might be coming. So if you want to stay ahead and maximize on the opportunity, this is the right way to do it. And we'll add the link to book a call down here in the chat. So like I said, you want to zig when others are zagging. A lot of these new laws are already in effect. Demand for ADU designers and builders is only increasing here in LA with all the rebuild effort. Demand is going up, so it's certainly not going down. So if you want to save time, save money with your ADU project, the right time to start, the right way to start is begin the conversation now. The more information that you have early, the best you can plan and execute on the project. We're already at 10:30. I talk way too much, I suppose, but let me introduce a really brief case study. I'll share the slide deck if you guys want to take a deeper look at it, but here's an example. Look at this property in Culver City. We helped a homeowner build a 1-bed, 1-bath ADU. It was around 600 square feet. It cost them roughly $230,000. They were able to qualify for the Cal HFA grant, which saved them $40K. They also had $40K cash to put down to begin the project, or to pay with cash, but they needed financing. They needed to get around $150,000 in loans. So if you do the math, assume a traditional mortgage with current day interest rates around 6.5 to 7 points. That brings the interest payment or the total payment every month to $978. So you can look at it like after you build this ADU, you're paying $978 to pay it off every month. Now, here's an example of a vacation rental in Culver City. This is on Airbnb. For a month rental of this similar unit, $4,000. Now, here's an example of traveling professionals. A lot of people, traveling nurses, for example, are looking for not short-term housing, but medium-term housing. They don't want a year lease. They just want to stay somewhere for a month or for a few months during their work. And on websites like this for traveling professionals, a similar unit like this costs somewhere around $3,200 every month. And if you're looking for a long-term rental, if you want to keep it easy and just have someone stay in there for the long haul, average rents in Culver City are anywhere from $2,400 to $3,200. And mind you, when you're building an ADU, it's brand new. It's not in an apartment. You don't need to walk through a building typically. You don't need to deal with anything broken or worn out. This is a brand new unit. So you can really charge on the upper end of what the rates are in your area. So if we do some quick math, short-term rental, you're making over $3,000 a month. In the medium-term rental, you're making over $2,000 a month. And even with a long-term, with your monthly payment, you're still netting over $2,000 a month. So if you're looking at an ADU for the opportunity as a rental, this is it. Now, moving on, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the horror stories when it comes to ADUs. You may have heard about anchored tiny homes or multitasker, and there's more and more every day. It's devastating to hear all of these contractors or ADU companies that advertise that they're going to solve all the problems. They found a way to build these for half the price of anyone else. And, big promises. If it sounds too good to be true, it typically is. And I don't know about you, but I can't afford wasting thousands and thousands of dollars on mistakes that I make during a project. And I certainly wouldn't recommend it. And things that we see all the time with the thousands of homeowners that we talk to, there's predatory contractors out there with some of the tactics that these companies that I mentioned use to take advantage of homeowners. I've seen bad designers that don't know how to effectively design an ADU project, but still trying to submit them to the city. So they get stuck in endless loops at the city just with corrections and corrections and corrections. And also, not even that homeowners use a bad architect, but they use an architect who may not be experienced when it comes to ADUs or may not know too much about the cost engineering when it comes to developing a floor plan. So one of the most important things to talk to a designer about is your budget, and you want to make sure that your architect has experience and knows how to effectively budget out the cost of your project when it comes to build it. So here at here at Maxable, all of our partners have been thoroughly screened. We work with vetted contractors and vetted designers. And really the goal is we don't want you to stress about who to hire. We want you to focus on building the best project ever and getting exactly what you want out of it. So we've helped hundreds and hundreds of homeowners all over California build these ADU projects, whether it's you need an architect, you need a contractor, or if you just need a helping hand, someone to point you in the right direction, that's what we can help you with. So would you like our help? We can support you throughout every step in the process. And it always starts with getting connected with an ADU architect. Like I said, someone who's experienced with ADUs is really, really important. Once you hire an architect and get your plans drawn up, then we'll send you 3 general contractors who are all vetted within our network. They'll come out to your property, they'll review your plan set and give you an accurate estimate based on those plans and based on your property. If you need some assistance, we'd be happy to support you there. We'll help you review those bids. Every contractor, if you've ever collected bids before, all contractors write bids differently. So it can be difficult to compare them apples to apples. But my team is very experienced when it comes to comparing estimates and what estimates look like. So we can certainly help you through that process to make sure that you're getting the right deal and that you have all the information that you need. And then finally, you hire your favorite contractor and start the project. And just know that our support doesn't end there. Just because you sign a contract and hire a contractor doesn't mean you're done. So we'll be checking in with you every step through the process and checking in with the contractor. Our goal, again, is really just to ensure that everything is moving smoothly, that everything is happening the way you want it. And if not, we're always going to support you and liaise with the relationship to make sure that you're getting what you want. So like I said, it always starts with site evaluation. We're going to dive into your property. We'll make sure that we have all the latest bills and laws that apply to your property in your area. And we'll break down what your options are for an ADU, what makes the most sense for your property, and we can discuss costs, regulations, timelines, and everything else from there. So like I said, this is the best way to begin the process. Book an ADU call with our team. If you are based in California, we would be happy to help you. Book a call, chat with our team, learn everything you need to know about ADUs, and get all the support you need from start to finish. Like I said, my name is John. Our company is Maxable, and we're here to help you with your ADU project.